Previously on Work to Game.
Probably news.
Probably news. The wheel has been wanting us to talk about the wheel. The wheel.
We're going to do a bigger spin.
Oh, please be news.
Oh, it's almost news. Deep Dungeon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, talking about dead features.
And the wheel has spoken. Chris, you put Palace of the Dead. Not necessarily super clear as to what that means. What is this topic? Because Palace of the Dead, yes, please. Go ahead.
Yeah. We talked about it a little bit in Zan's stream yesterday, where somebody was asking me what the next topic was, and I put Deep Dungeon, but it's a bigger topic than just Deep Dungeon. It's the idea of content that expires.
Okay.
And there were already people saying well, I like that they got rid of Deep Dungeon and that they're making the Relic more invitational as leveling content. It's more types of content merging into one. And there are other people no, I like Deep Dungeon for what it was, and I don't really like Relic Grind. I didn't want those things merged.
Mm-hmm.
So as the game moves forward, we see number of dungeons per patch change. We see amount of story per patch change. We see the content shift, and that inherently means that to get something new, sometimes we have to give up something that we would have gotten in a format from a patch past.
All right, so this is a big meaty topic. Guys, weigh in with your thoughts in the comments below. Let us know if we're, right on the money or if you disagree. It's an open forum, and that's what these videos should be about. Yesterday I posted on Final Fantasy XVI not stealing from Final Fantasy XIV, and this is somewhat probably going to relate to it. If you guys haven't seen that video, I'll include a link in the description, but also I want to tease out one final thing before we dive in. And we just sat down and filmed with Lucron, the author and creator of 15-Year WoW, over to Final Fantasy XIV. That video is going to be up live for you guys tomorrow. Hopefully you enjoy that. Great conversation, a little bit longer than these normal 20-minute videos, but hopefully you enjoyed that. We'll be getting him back on for a future podcast as he has just entered into Shadowbringers. So it was a spoiler-free conversation, but it was very insightful as to kind of their experience with the game so far. And so hopefully you guys enjoy that. All right, Palace of the Dead. It's an interesting thing you bring up, first and foremost, because we're not getting a Palace of the Dead kind of a Deep Dungeon style content this expansion. But we are getting the Boshin Southern Front, which does feel like it cards these things together. My personal take right now is honestly, it's if Boshin Front delivers, I think people who are concerned that they're not getting a Deep Dungeon might be excited for this, because if it combines what we like about Deep Dungeon without sacrificing a Relic Grind, because people say that, hey, they don't like the Relic Grind, but in Stormblood, you had to kind of choose. That's actually kind of the thing that I always felt. I was like, I'm either working on Relic or I'm working on this other thing. And all of that was instance, and it just kind of felt lonely if you were out in the open world. What are your thoughts here immediately?
I mean, I think from the get-go, I will say that there are people that still go back and stream doing Eureka. There are people that go back and stream doing Deep Dungeon, and those are two very different types of things to watch. Watching somebody solo grind Deep Dungeon and watching somebody like Zeppla solo grind Deep Dungeon on a Red Mage or whatever is very, very different than going back and farming an old Relic in Eureka. So even if they feel like they satisfy that same itch now, they won't age the same. Because Deep Dungeon had value beyond the Relic, and beyond glamour and beyond leveling. It just had its own challenge to it, and so it could be content just for the sake of content. Eureka required a bigger group for that than our Deep Dungeon did. So it doesn't age the same. It requires a little more organization. So I don't think they're the exact same.
Okay.
I think it's very much like dropping content to make room for a different kind of content. So even if you try to cater to the same crowd, you'll never exactly overlap. Saying if it delivers, I think is really going to be in the eye of each beholder. And so there are going to be players that adore this and go, thank God, I hated Eureka, I hated Deep Dungeon. This put together is amazing. There are going to be people that don't like this. And if those people happen to also like Deep Dungeon and spend a lot of time in there, then they are still going to feel left out.
So this kind of ties into the 1 dungeon per patch. That
Absolutely.
So from ARR we were at 3 dungeons per patch, down to 2 dungeons per patch, down to 1.1 dungeons per patch, down to 1 dungeon per patch. And while I've been fine with that, I've always been like, well, what's the trade-off, right? And that's where I think a lot of the sentiment comes into, that people feel that 16 is stealing from 14, and I disagree with the term stealing. I was like, no, your sub goes to like pay Square Enix, and then they decide what to do with money. But overall, like when you talk about, we're just talking about like Deep Dungeon itself, having none of that, you just described to me, I think, unfortunately, for somebody who does not like Potion, if it does not deliver for them, I think that is going to drive that sentiment even, make that even stronger, because then they get less dungeons. There's no deep dungeon, which maybe that's what they were looking for. They, like you said, that individual challenge that people have. It's interesting streaming content to watch. It's interesting content to be a part of, and I would guess that it's interesting content to make. The deep dungeon, I have looked at it from a design perspective, and I think that's where, when we talk about content that expires, I think that's where I wish that it was designed slightly different, in which that as the level expanded, there would just magically be new floors. Like, just imagine if there wasn't a cap, and so that the content wasn't to hit to level 200, but imagine if you could get, who could get to 201 or 210 or 230. And by the way, every time the level cap expands, like, yeah, that challenge gets a little bit easier, because that content automatically shifts to you, the player. And that's where Diadem's a great example. It's a perfect example of this. Diadem, Eureka, and now the Boshin Southern Front, which drops, guys, if you're unaware, on October the 13th. Just be ready. I personally am really excited for this. It ticks all the different check boxes that I kind of felt like kind of struggled. So as leveling content, like, meaning when 6.0 comes out and the level caps goes up, I can still go back into this content and use it to level experience. I kind of maybe I
don't know how soloable it is.
Well, yeah,
it will be enjoyable solo. We don't know if it really is.
But when we've seen this kind of stuff, Diadem, when it was out, it's content that has like this. It just seems to have this little life, this spark, and then it kind of fades out. Eureka's similar, even though with the fact that you have Baldi's and Arsenal, with the fact you have these other systems kind of locked further behind it, it seems to have a little bit longer life, which I don't know if that was expected, but I as somebody who consumes content, not a content creator, but a consumer, I have enjoyed Mione, like going through and playing through like Eureka. Like, that is interesting to me, especially here in 2020. And obviously the experience isn't like what it was at the time, but it's still somewhat like surprising me that it still has a relevance today. Same thing with the Deep Dungeon. But the real question we're getting at is it enough? And if it's like Eureka, I felt was something that if you didn't enjoy Eureka when it came out, like a huge chunk of the game all of a sudden was not for you. And basically we might be on the precipice of that same system, only there isn't something else to point at and saying, well, if you didn't like Eureka, go try this. You have a thought. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that's where this conversation naturally shifts, is, does the whole game need to be for you? When you buy a ticket to a theme park, you might intend to ride every ride, but if you do, you probably don't intend to spend a lot of time in the more like walking exhibits, if they have like an old historical house you can see. And if you're going to do that, you're probably not going to try to eat at all the restaurants. As a kid, we had season passes to Six Flags, and like we would have a goal for the trip. My mom was single at the time, and she would take us, and this was this thing that we could do on my mom's weekend, where we would go and she'd go, we're going to try all the funnel cake stands, and we would go split me, her, and my sister would go split a funnel cake from every stand, and then we would be like, oh, which one was the best? And then the next time it's like, oh, we're going to go ride all the wooden roller coasters, and we're going to compare those. And so but we weren't doing everything in one trip, and because it's too big of a park, and the park has only gotten bigger since then, even though it's the same square footage. They're really good at cramming stuff in, and this is a theme park that gets bigger, like just adds whole new expansions. So I don't know that everything has to be for you. Really all they owe you is a fun initial experience, because you pay full price for that, which I believe 5.0 gave us. And then every time you pay a month, you pay $15 for what needs to be fair access to a server that has ideally a month of content somewhere in it. Because that's what's going to make you pay another month.
Okay.
And I think they deliver that, whether or not they spend any money on 16, whether or not they add things that are not for me. that's fine. Like one of my favorite times to go to Six Flags is Fright Fest. I don't like haunted houses. Perfect. There are other things going on at Fright Fest besides haunted houses. So like I would say this expansion, besides Boja, also did a lot for crafters and gatherers. There are a lot of players that are not crafters and gatherers. There are a lot of players that are not even remotely interested in being crafters or gatherers. And there is this whole set of content, literally server queue causing content between this and fishing raids that just are not for people that play this game exclusively for battle classes. And that's okay. They don't have to spend every dollar that goes into the game on just you. And it benefits you just the same. Like our tax dollars go to highways that we may never drive on, but it's part of a whole highway system. And without that system, there aren't trucks that bring things to my local grocery store. There aren't, right? And so like, I may not drive on that highway, but somebody else that services some aspect of my life does. So it's better as a system as a whole. So like my opinion is, I don't really care if Boja's for everybody, just that it's for enough people to justify the resources on it, even if I'm not one of those people.
Okay. I think about this in a couple of different ways, because the concern is that, like, from the player's perspective, is that, you know, because I usually it's like when somebody's like, oh, I've done everything in this game, and then somebody's like, oh, have you done this? And in fact, I've even people, I was like, you know, when I've been critical, somebody's like, oh, have you done this? And all I do is I take a screenshot of like my achievement list and my character sheet. And it's like, yeah, I've got all those like, it's like, and then they're usually like, oh, like having done that, and then you can you have to hit a certain point where
there's still
like,
things you haven't done. You
no,
haven't cleared all the ultimates.
I haven't done the ultimates, and then I haven't hit like the top floors. That's actually something where when we talk about like Palace of the Dead and even Heaven on High, because those are the two deep dungeon contents, like the fact that they exist and the fact that I have yet to do them makes me want to do them. Like it's just a matter of kind of like scheduling and trying to find that placement, and I like that they exist. The fact that we're not getting a Palace of the Dead in this case, or that deep dungeon in this case, has me actually looking at hopefully that the front delivers. And that's one of the things we'll probably have a follow-up video on this alone, is our thoughts on the front lines. Sure. It's like, does this content check more boxes and thus address more needs to the player? Personally, what they've shown off looks to me saying like, yes, this is what I have been looking forward to. My hope is that players more identify with that. So it's like, yes, like this is the fear is that, hey, I didn't like Eureka, I'm not going to like this. This doesn't seem to be directly one-to-one, because Eureka evolved over the course of the expansion, and where it ended, that's kind of what their original design was. And it's unfortunate from a technical debt perspective that they don't go back. And for those who don't know what technical debt is, I talk about in that video, but it's time, money, and resources. And I define passion, but it's also the amount of time, money, and resources needed to fix a bug, to fix something that was not implemented properly, right? To go in it. Like, it's going to take human people, real money, and the time. Right. And if, anyway, so that's kind of that aspect, and we've seen that happen, and that's where I think we see this conversation bubbling. And so my concern, and this hopefully isn't a prophetic video, but my concern is that 5.3.5 drops, and then all of a sudden people are just like, this game's not made for, like, where it's just like all of a sudden it's the final shoe to drop for a lot of players who pin their hopes on a specific piece of content. And
zoom out a little.
What's up?
Then they just need to zoom out a little.
Talk to me about what that means.
So let's not even zoom out a lot, right? So you look at Boja and you go, this isn't for me. Mm-hmm. This game doesn't get me. They're coming out with 16. Screw this. And you're looking at everything that's happened in this game in a 4-week period, and you're saying, forget it. Zoom out just to 5.3. Mm-hmm. What all did we get with 5.3? 5.3 to 5.4. What does that cycle include? Right? We get Boja, got a Beast Tribe, got a ton of story, voice acted. Mm-hmm. We've got some Ish Guardian stuff going on that's building towards, I don't know, hopefully community farms of some kind.
Something.
Who knows? They're gonna release one house. It's gonna be one plot. This is what we've been doing, guys. There's gonna be one plot. Hopefully you get it. Get your macros ready. So we got a ton, and that's just this content cycle. So like even in the 5.3 to 5.4 content cycle, if Boja's not for you, have you tried crafting? Have you tried gathering? Have you gone and gotten involved in the story? They added a ton of stuff to New Game Plus. So, you know, the game's been out a long time. Maybe you've been playing all the way since back ARR. You got everything cleared. Do you remember all the things about these different things? Go try New Game Plus out. I wish it had more rewards for behind it personally, because I would use it to like level alternate classes. But it doesn't. And it still tells me like there's a chance that in ARR you were like not as invested in something because you didn't know how important it would be later. So go try that out. Like we got Yokai Watch coming back in a big way. Have you done Yokai Watch? Like, and if all of that's not for you, that's only 5.3. So like if somehow everything they've added here, all group content, all solo content, it's just not for you. Okay, let's zoom out and everything we've gotten since 5.0 to 5.4. There's a ton in there. That adds everything from fishing raids to other beast tribes to there's some really cool stuff going on with the fates this time around compared to last expansions. You know, we've had PvP seasons for the people that works for. I wouldn't play
not many because like especially when you look at the even our video on PvP, which was our last one, like it's like, and I've even talked to people like, hey,
it's not for everybody.
I'm thinking about being like a 14 PvP content creator.
That's
the
luck, man. We need one.
Oh, we need
those.
Gonna
be us.
Good luck.
Yeah, there's so much. Go get involved in hunts. Like hunts is something I know you, Brian, like there's a ton of stuff locked behind hunts you haven't done.
Yeah, I've been nice. That's
like a
hunts
whole,
as a part of leveling.
That's
it's
a
really
whole thing.
Yeah, hunts as a part of leveling is really great, especially when you're on a DPS class because you do have that downtime between queues. So being able to have plenty of those pages is like, all right, I'm just gonna go like wander around and do this until this pops. Yeah, it
that's
actually
like the Eureka community before Eureka.
Honestly, I would love to see a little bit more of that. So bringing this kind of back around into this kind of a holistic view, it's that when I look at the systems that exist, I would love to see an actual expansion to those systems, something that essentially allows for more, in that regard. It's like, okay, front's not to you. Like I said earlier about with Palace of the Dead and Heaven on High, like it would have been nice to see if that there was like, yeah, guess what? It goes up to level cap. Like it always does, but maybe now that you've hit this certain thing, that's when this opens up. And can you get to floor 200, 300, 500? Like just,
you want procedurally generated content.
I do. If not all of that, at least some form of that. Like one of the things that like when Yoshi P continues to praise Diablo 3, there's things that in Diablo 3 that are fun for the sake of being fun, and then yet they also like offer, like for those who want it, a goal. And essentially when we're looking at, I guess what I hear, and this is just my personal take, you don't need to, and people don't need to agree with me, is that Chris and I have had conversations, and Chris is like, Brian, you're looking for progression. It's like typically when I look at a game, like I like to sit down and there's fun for fun's sake. But if you can level, you can like apply some form of where I can set a goal on top of that fun. That's something that drives me as a gamer. That's not for everybody. Sometimes you just want fun for fun's sake. Last night I was playing Peggle with my kids, and that immediately switch kicks on in my brain. I wonder if I can get the high score. It's like that's something whether it's that's a good thing or bad thing. You can let me know in the comments. Like, Brian, you got a problem? Like always be goaling ABG.
No, it's a human nature thing. It's why things like Farmville do so well. Is that they tap into that aspect of somebody's life where they can have control of this one thing and they can watch it grow and blossom and nurture, and it's like it's a really good intrinsic trait in humanity to have, because it's what allows us to raise children, and it's what allows us to invest in things that last longer than ourselves, especially over human history, where like even building a church for your community could take multiple generations. So like it's really good that we got joy out of the aspect of the building, and we didn't need the finished product the whole time to enjoy it. We could enjoy the process of getting there. Thank goodness we have that, or we wouldn't have achieved the level of things we've achieved as a species. So like I think it's a natural thing. Some of us take it to different degrees, but I think where I struggle with in 14 specifically is that we tend to get focused in on like, they gave me this thing I didn't want, and that was the exact dollar That was the single dollar that was going to push us over the edge to getting this thing I thought was amazing. And we heard it when limited jobs came out. You know, there was accusations that, well, if they had spent that money on this, like, you know, insert whatever thing you wanted, right? That Blue Mage would have single-handedly paid for Male Vieira. And it's like, that's not really how that works. Right? If they never developed 16, like, you know, we see comments that are like, well, 16's taking money away because it doesn't even have money. Well, it hasn't come out yet, so like it can't have money. So like all of the 16 players haven't been given a chance to pay yet.
Yeah.
So like I think my feelings towards this are like, it's a value proposition each and every month of, do I believe there's still $15 worth of content left in this game? And if I do, I pay. And so in my mind, the Yoshi P and his team cannot burn me more than 1 month, because each month I get a chance to opt in, unless I buy in a bigger chunk. And even then they only get me once. They draw on my credit card one time and I realize there's nothing left in this game for me. You just cancel that sub. Like, he tells you to do it all the time. Take a break, come back. If you like all the story and voice acting, they put a ton of money into it, and they tell you when it's coming out. Like,
yeah, we know that
we know.
Hey, here it is.
There will be no voice acting with 535 that can't be enjoyed later. So come back at 5.4. You'll be fine.
That's a good point. Chris, before we spin the wheel, one of the questions we've gotten is like, what are the actual topics on the wheel itself? Would you mind bringing that to us and kind of showing us what's on the board before we spin it for our next video on Thursday?
So I believe you guys know about news. We've seen that before. We actually have 2 here that are reactions, which is a chance for us to go out and respond to videos you guys have. The YouTube behind the scenes thing, it's ever changing and it's ever different, just like the algorithm and whatever the overlords want from us. So we can actually see at this point what videos you guys have been watching outside of ours. It tells us like what other videos like are, you know, the people that watch our videos have in common, which it turns out you guys really like 14. A lot of them are 14 videos. So tell us a little more about that game. I also have 2 community feedbacks on there. Which is a format you guys may be familiar with if you're longtime fans of the channel. I know there's a lot of new faces here. Thank you so much. That's a chance to go back and respond to comments, make this a little more conversational. We try really hard to respond to a lot of comments in the comment section, but community feedback's a chance to go back and make a video like this out of discussions that you guys are having and kind of just carry a conversation forward that's clearly not over. And then beyond that, we start to get into things like, what do we want from our next crossover? Fishing, because there's all sorts of different features like adding search bars and things like that they want, but like, I mean, fishing's become this huge standalone system. It's even different than botany and mining. Talking a little more about gatekeeping, but this is specifically around, I know we've had quite a bit of conversations around it. That's been the hot topic lately, but just like, are there people that should not be playing the game? Like, are there people that we legitimately feel and have the right to feel should not be playing the game? So is there a fair level? Like, are we doing people some level of favor by having some form of gate? Burnout. That could be on the content creation side. That could be on the content consumption side. It doesn't, I mean, burnout is very real in everything we do. Gil, what is it good for? The lyrics, I believe, answer that one in my opinion, but I bet we could fill 20 minutes. Speaking of Gil, let's talk about that token. Do we want a Gil token? As we go into Shadowlands and gold making became this big thing in WoW, as everybody tried to get the Longboy before, it's a big mount that's getting removed from the game that costs 5 million gold. There's this big sprint for it. It brings out a lot of strengths and weaknesses in that community. And the 14 community just doesn't have those things. They don't have the strengths, they don't have the weaknesses. And a lot of what shifts that aspect of the community is the token. Relic, that's a big topic. Relics expire. How do we feel about that? You know, I mean, relics, it's an interesting system, but it's a very contained thing. We get it mid-expansion. It expires at the end of the expansion. Crafting, obviously, this has been a big topic this expansion. I'm wondering what they're going to do with Ishgard after they remove it, but like questions, this goes into questions like, should we be able to craft best in slot?
Okay.
What is the role of crafters? What is the role, you know, how do we make crafting relevant, but not make people feel obligated to do it? And that brings us all the way back around.
All right, guys, those are the topics. And as we do and hit a topic, we erase it and we fill it with something that you guys have suggested. Usually that kind of floats, to the top in the comments below. So be sure to keep leaving those suggestions if there's anything that you hope to see us talk about. That's the whole point of this, and it's been a lot of fun. I think it's time to spin the wheel.
Yeah, now we do have a bonus video tomorrow. We have Greeter coming on, Brian mentioned earlier, and then we're also, I believe we're going to be recording an AMA soon for our members.
Yeah, so if you're a channel member, I have a post up. You can go leave your questions down there and let us know what you think. All right, what do we got?
Relic.
Wow.
Well timed.
Well timed. The wheel knows, man.
Yeah, the wheel does know. It knew about news. It knew October 13th was coming.
Absolutely.
It had been trying to warn us.
All right, guys. So tune in on Thursday where we discuss the relic, its expiration, its turning into glamour, and the level of investment that is required. So we're going to be talking about that as well as looking forward to the future because on October the 9th, guys, we'll actually be live with the live letter and reacting to that. So we haven't had one of those in a while. So hopefully you join us live here at Work to Game. For Work to Game, my name is Brian.
My name's Chris.
Thanks so much for checking out this video. Like, share, subscribe. As always, let us know if you do in the comments below so we can welcome you just like Braun did today with that hitting that subscribe button. So thank you, Braun. Anyway, that's it, guys. See you on Thursday. Well, actually, see you Wednesday, and then I'll see you on Thursday. Bye. This video is sponsored by me, Ginger Prime. Hopefully, you'll check out my podcast channel, Ginger Gaming Radio, which we have lots of guests, lots of great conversations, and even more highlights. Links are in the description below. Let me know what you think. Thanks.